Born in Harare, Zimbabwe, Brenda Savanhu's journey has spanned continents and cultures. She spent her early years between England and Zimbabwe before moving to the United States at the age of 18. Brenda's faith story is one of rediscovery. Her profound return to faith became the foundation for her book, Memorial Stones, a guided devotional journal for foundational miracles in your life. Through her writing, Brenda encourages others to reflect on and celebrate the miracles that shape their spiritual journeys.
I was born in Zimbabwe. But we moved to England, to the UK, when I was 5 months old. And then I was there until I was 7 with my parents and my sister. And we moved back to Zimbabwe. And so my faith journey starts a little bit later. I think I was about 9 or 10. A cousin was living with us, and she was a believer. My parents, we weren't going to church or anything. And so my cousin would sneak my sister and I out to church.
Ah.
Yeah. But fast forward into 6 years into our marriage, the marriage started falling apart. And I remember just sitting in my bedroom one day, and I wondered where God was. And not that I felt like he abandoned me, but I felt like I had abandoned him. And so I just started recalling, because even in that time where it was forced church, I saw miracles, right? I saw how my mom believed. I saw how God showed up for my mother. And so I sat there and I said to the Lord, well, I remember you did all of these things, but how is it that I've forgotten them? So I just sat there with him and wondered about that. And then I made a decision to go to church. I was living in Wisconsin at that time, so I just picked a church down the street. And I'm like, I'm just going to go to church. So then that began my journey. That was in my 30s. That began my journey of rediscovering my relationship with the Lord, of going back to church. And so there's a special place in my heart for Chicago Tabernacle, because that's the place where my relationship with Jesus deepened.
Wow.
Because what I realized was, all the years, and my mom she was such a faith-filled woman, but I relied on her faith, and I didn't have my own.
So since Brenda brought it up, I wanted to put a plug in for Chicago Tabernacle. So chicagotabernacle.org. It's a great church on the northwest side of Chicago. So come on in. We'd love to have you. You can, we've got some great folks that'll greet you at the door. And then afterwards, if you're a new visitor, you can stop by the Connection Lounge, where you might have a chance to see me and some of our team. So you said that going to Chicago Tabernacle really deepened your relationship with the Lord, right?
Yeah. That community, that church really modeled what it was to deepen your relationship with the Lord, to where every conversation with almost anyone was like, how is your time with the Lord? And so because everyone's asking, right, you're like, oh, I better I better have quiet time.
I want to answer truthfully. Why this book?
So I started to think about memorial stones. I think the first time they came up for me was I was doing Beth Moore's Believing God Bible study. She talks about memorial stones in there. And then I end up moving to Houston, right? But I'd already established this thought with the Lord when I went through my divorce at 30, that I need to remember what you've done, right? So that was always, how you have something on the back burner. That was always in the back burner of my mind, on the back burner of my mind, was to remember what God had done. So then that way, whenever he would ask me to do something, or whenever I felt led to do something that felt like it was impossible, I would remember what he had done. So that thought was in the back of my mind.
That's what a memorial stone is, and why it's important for us to reflect on our memories.
Yeah, so when we look back at the Bible, when we look at the book of Joshua, we see that the Lord instructed him to tell the Israelites to extract stones from the middle of the Jordan when they were crossing over from the wilderness into the promised land. The Lord told Joshua, tell the Israelites, one man from each tribe, grab a stone, right, bring it across to the side that they had crossed over to. And these would serve as memorial stones. These would serve as something to remind the Israelites how God had showed up and what he had done. And so the meaning of memorial stones is exactly that. It's what we find in the Bible. It's what we find in Joshua 3 and 4. And so in our own lives, it's those places where God has shown up, what he did in those places. But when I talked about my mother and my mother's faith, sending me to the United States was a huge step of faith. She was a single mother who lived paycheck to paycheck, single mother of 3 children who lived paycheck to paycheck. And one of the stories I recall was when I was coming to the United States for college, she had my airfare saved. She went to a prayer meeting and we were there too. I think all 3 of us, my siblings and I, we were there too. And she felt led to give away all of that money to a pastor who was also coming to the United States.
Oh,
that was my ticket money, right?
Okay.
And so it's like, okay, so how am I going to go? But God provided, right? She heard his voice to give, she gave, and then he provided, and I came.
Wow.
So the healing journey for me was writing memorial stones. When we went through this, like I had my miracles, I had my memorial stones, but when he said do it with the meanings of the names of the tribes of Israel, I had to sit and say, okay, God, show me. And so as he showed me each place, healing was taking place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. So writing the book itself was healing because I had to sit. What I'm asking the reader to do, I had to do. And so that's how I came up with each of the vignettes for each of the memorial stones.
That's incredible.
So I started moving in the direction of like, okay, well, I guess maybe I'll just release it as an ebook. But then one day a friend of mine, she called me and said, hey, I came across this particular publisher at this event, Christian Faith Publishing. Maybe you should just take a look at it and see if this is the venue through which you should publish your book. And I said, well, let me pray about it and see. So I prayed about it and I felt like God was like, yes, I want you to use this publisher. So I said, great. So I submitted my manuscript to them. They liked it. They said, this is great. Now, this was a hybrid publisher, right?